Hey, AtariMaxi. Now, what you're talking about, first thing, is your 45 pounds is legal perfect deer hunting weight. Yes, it depends on your state laws and regulations for your Fish and Game and Wildlife Reserve. So, some states require you to have the minimum of 40 or 45 pounds to be the requirement poundage for your bow to legally hunt large game. Second, the reason why I talk about, or a lot of people talk about, slowly building yourself up, is there's a lot of things about this. First thing I'll mention off is my first bow was this bow. This is a Crossman Elkhorn compound bow, and before I got it, I had to do myself a lot of research on the entire definition of draw length and draw poundage, and I wanted something that would suit me because I wasn't the strongest, toughest guy in the world. So when I saw that it was like 24 real poundage, like actually lifting weights and such forth, I was like, okay, that's not going to be cool to do all day. So I wanted something easy, and I went with a compound bow because of the let-off ability. And I saw it's also smaller. When I got the bow, I was like, oh man, this is like 3 times smaller than a recurve bow. So I was like, yeah, this fit me just perfect. It came with a 2-piece quiver, obviously mounts in these bolt areas, 2 arrows, and a little rubber arrow rest, but I didn't use that. And it came with a sight, a little 1-pin sight you screw in it and such forth. I put some tape right here before because the arrows weren't really like sitting in place. They kept on rolling up and down on the steel loop right here, because this is an all-weather string. Basically it's just a rubber, it's a steel string with a flat rubber outer coating, so that way it doesn't pinch your fingers and such forth when you pull back. And bought myself 3 extra arrows. The standard arrows came with 3-inch vanes. The extra arrows came with 2-inch vanes, and the arrows were 26 inches for the bow, and the extras were 28 inches. And all were fiberglass or safety glass arrows, so they weren't anything fancy, but they shot okay. And I shot off the shelf right here, and it was great. I got myself the bow. I started shooting. I'm sure it's 1.5 inches or inch shorter than my draw length, but it was quite a fun bow to have and use for quite a while. And that's the point. You want a bow to be able to be fun, be able to shoot for a long period of time, and enjoy yourself, so you can focus on getting your groups for your target shooting. You're not looking to buy your bow for a first starter. You're not looking to buy your bow, start hunting, and think you're going to be a pro in the fast shots. You're going to pick up your bow, get a low poundage bow, because that's much more funner to use. And like I was mentioning before, the reason why you have a low poundage bow is also makes it so if you're shooting and missing a lot, you're not having to chase those arrows like 20 miles away because you're accidentally firing too far from your box, and they're ending up going too far from the box area. So if you miss, the arrows just go and dip down so fast, so they actually die down their speed a lot faster than a heavier poundage bow would, because a heavy poundage bow will just launch that arrow like miles away from that box area, and you would have a fun time trying to recover that arrow. I can tell you that. But yeah, that's why a lot of people say start with a low poundage bow, including with a recurve bow. If you're gonna do that, you're not having the advantage of a compound bow, where if you pull back, you're having this let off area. So now you're holding a lot less poundage. So people with compound bows can actually hold their bow for like 2 minutes in this position with no problem. But a recurve shooter probably can only hold this position for probably about 30 seconds or a minute at max before they have to release, depending on how poundage, because they're having to hold that entire weight at their anchor point, and it's quite stressful holding that poundage at that point. If you're not really fit and you haven't been shooting for much, yeah, it's going to be quite a challenge. So anyways, that's why a lot of people say start with a low poundage bow and work yourself up, because it's much more enjoyable, funner, and greater to shoot for target shooting, focus on your groups and such forth, and your form, than having to jump up to a super powerful bow and just start shooting like that and think you're going to be a pro because you got a super speedy bow. You're trying to shoot now and trying to focus on getting your groups nice and centered. It's not very smart. As for mechanical releases and such forth, like I told you before, it really depends on people's profession or likes for such forth of those. But I was just telling you that some of those can fail depending on how people handle their bow and such forth. That's all up to them and how they work their bow and such forth. Even the guy on this video, he shoots releases on some of his bows, and that's cool. I would shoot a release too, but I like to use fingers because it's much more, I can feel power in my bow a lot better. And he'll even agree too that shooting with fingers does help you feel much more of the bow than shooting with a release. And cams breaking, poor bow. Like I said, I never heard of any type of cams ever breaking before, even for plastic cams. These are full plastic with little grooves in it so the string can roll on it. The only thing that's metal is the holder part for the start of the steel string. And this is a slave drive cam system, so it hooks up to one point and ends at the other point. So basically it hooks here, goes down, wraps in through this wheel, then goes this way, wraps through that wheel, then goes through our string, and then goes back and ends this loop area. So yeah. And that's my bow. That's my first bow. My second bow, you obviously can see it plain as day. This bow, on the other hand, after a few weeks or a few times of shooting my Crossman, I saw this on the shelf of Big 5. I was like, oh, yeah, this is definitely me. And it was fully customizable too. It was from 19 to 45 pounds. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I could set this 10 pounds heavier than my Crossman bow, and have an extra inch of draw length so I can get my draw length correctly. And this fit me just excellent. It's 28 axle inches. It's twin cam designed. It came with basically the sights, the arrow rest, 3 arrows, aluminum arrows, 2-piece quiver, which I basically As you can see, went over time changing those out with a Allen Company target sight, which actually has a light, which is fantastic. I'm not a fan of the light though because it's blue. It should be red, not blue. I talked in the other video about that. And I have an Allen Company Free Glide drop away arrow rest that I put on the cable rod system instead of the string. That way I can adjust the string a lot better than having to fiddle around with having to take off the drop away arrow rest every time I tune the strings. And then I have a True Glow lockdown 4-arrow quiver with Allen Company Illuminator arrows, 29 inches, with Nap Quick Fletches Quick Spin 3-inch vanes. And I put my own brassing point. I tuned this bow myself. I'm still fiddling around with the tuning ability because my shots are a bit inconsistent, but I'm still focusing on just getting my shots on the box. But anyways, that's not the point. The point is this bow started out with after using Crossman and been shooting with this for a bit, and it's pretty good. I also have some limb savers on here, and later in the future I plan on getting a hindsight because I'm not having a peep sight on my bow whatsoever. A lot of people would, but for me, I don't want a peep sight. And what I do is I pull fingers and I look through the right side of my string, and that way when I'm about to fire, I sight in, boom. And I like the slightly longer arrows because it just makes your bow nice and looking cool, because it's not inside right by the riser. It actually shows your bow is about to kill something because the arrow is pointing out like that. It's like, yeah. And if you have a broadhead on there, it's just like, boom. And look at my hand. I've been learning the technique of trying to do that too, because when I first started bow shooting, I always kept my hand grip like this. So you need to keep your hand soft grip like that. That way you're not holding the bow and tilting it like this. And I like fingers because you can do this. Anyways, AtariMaxi, you got any more comments you want to tell me about? That's nice and sweet. Or are you gonna tell your dad to actually show you how his bow works a bit more better? Thank you very much, and see you later.